The year was 2784, and the galaxy had already decided humanity's fate. The Velari Dominion, an empire that spanned 3 spiral arms, had spent the last 4 centuries conquering, absorbing, or annihilating every species that refused to kneel. Their warships were living cathedrals of obsidian and gold, kilometers long, grown rather than built, crewed by a hive mind of telepathic warriors who felt no fear because they shared every mind in their fleet at once. When they arrived at a new system, they broadcast protocols were simple: surrender your planets, accept the Dominion's neural brand, or be erased. Humanity's turn came on a Tuesday. The combined fleet of the Dominion's 7th Choir, 211 capital vessels, dropped out of subspace above Luna in perfect geometric formation. Their opening message was translated in every human language simultaneously as, "Your species is biologically insignificant. Your worlds are resource-rich. Surrender or be unmade." Earth's response was patchwork. The Martian Congress voted to fight. The lunar enclaves voted to negotiate. The Belt Alliance started arming freighters. Venus refused to vote at all and simply went dark. Within 48 hours, the unified governments that had existed on paper collapsed under the weight of raw survival instinct. Then the Velari began bombarding Antarctica for non-compliance demonstration purposes. That was when Captain Aya Okoye, commanding the experimental United Nations Navy cruiser USS Tigris, did something no one expected. She turned her ship around and ran. Not toward the enemy.
Away.
Straight into the Kuiper Belt. The Velari laughed, if a hive mind can laugh, and detached a mere 30 ships to chase what they assumed was a panicked animal fleeing the slaughterhouse. The rest of the choir continued glassing the southern pole. Aya Okoye was 38 years old, born in Lagos, raised in orbit, and she had spent the last 12 years of her life lying to every admiral who would listen. The Tigris was officially listed as a deep space reconnaissance frigate with an oversized sensor suite. In reality, it was something else entirely. Project Cassandra had begun 90 years earlier, in the wake of the Procyon incident, when humanity first realized there were things out there that could end us without noticing. Cassandra's mandate was brutal and simple: build something that could kill a civilization if it ever became necessary. Not a fleet. One ship. One shot. Because humanity would never win a long war against a galactic power. We would get one surprise, and it had to be perfect. The Tigris was that surprise. Its hull was not metal but a lattice of exotic matter threaded with quantum-entangled filaments. Its power plant was not a fusion torch, but a contained micro-black hole the size of a grapefruit, spun so fast it sang in frequencies that made dogs howl on Earth. Its main weapon was codenamed Hollow Silence, and no one, not even most of the crew, knew exactly what it did. Only Aya, her XO Daniel Park, and the ship's reclusive chief engineer Dr. Mira Voss had the full schematic. As the 30 Velari hunters closed in, weaving through the Kuiper debris field like sharks through coral, Aya sat in the captain's chair and spoke the words she had rehearsed in her head for 12 years. All hands. This is Okoye. We are now executing Cassandra Prime. Repeat, Cassandra Prime. You all knew this day might come. I'm sorry it's today. On the main screen, the Dominion ships arranged themselves in a perfect dodecahedron trap, subspace lances charging with violet fire. Aya turned to Mira Voss, who stood at the engineering console, looking like she hadn't slept in a decade.
Doctor.
Is it ready? Myra's fingers danced across holographic controls. The black hole is stable at 0.998 C-spin. Entanglement density is 99.99. We can fire once. After that, the core evaporates in 72 seconds and takes half the solar system with it. So try to make it count. Aya allowed herself half a smile. 72 seconds is a lifetime. The Velari opened the conversation again. Primitive vessel, your surrender will be accepted with mercy. Resist and... Aya muted the channel. Daniel, she said to her XO, take us into the center of their formation. Full burn. Don't bother with evasive. Commander Park hesitated for the first time in 15 years of service. They'll tear us apart before we get halfway. They're welcome to try. The Tigris ignited its impossible engines. Space behind it folded like burning paper. Alarm screamed as the 30 Dominion ships unleashed a storm of plasma lances, gravitic shear bombs, and something that translated roughly as mind fire. The Tigris's exotic hull drank the energy, converting it directly into spin on the micro-black hole. Every hit made the weapon stronger. The crew watched in religious silence as their ship, a candle flying into a furnace, slid neatly into the exact center of the dodecahedron. Aya stood. Dr. Voss. Hollow silence. Fire. Mira closed her eyes and pressed a single virtual key. Nothing visible happened. No beam. No explosion. No flash of light. There was only a sound, or rather the absence of one. Every speaker, every comm channel, every implant in every skull went instantly, perfectly silent. Then the Veilari began to scream. Not metaphorically. The hive mind that linked every soldier, every pilot, every weapon system across the entire 7th Choir, 211 capital ships, and all 30 hunters, experienced something it had never encountered in 400 years of conquest. Individuality. Hollow silence was not a kinetic weapon or an energy lance. It was a shaped subspace pulse that carried a single, perfectly crafted packet of entangled photons. Those photons had been tuned to the exact resonance of the Veilari neural brand, the implant that allowed their hive mind to function. When the pulse met brand, it did not destroy, it severed. In a fraction of a second, every single Veilari in the solar system was cut off from the choir. 400 years of shared consciousness ended in a heartbeat. They felt alone for the first time in their lives. Most of them went mad instantly. On the bridge of the Tigris, the crew watched in horror as the 30 hunter ships began firing on each other. Collision alarms blared across the choir as capital ships drifted off course, reactors destabilizing, crews tearing at their own skulls trying to claw the silence out of their minds. One battleship simply vented its entire atmosphere in a single catastrophic sigh. The bombardment of Earth stopped mid-strike. Orbital mirrors cooled. Ice flashed back into clouds over Antarctica. Aya's voice was hoarse. Status on the core? Mira didn't look up. 41 seconds until evaporation. We need to be at least 1 light minute out, or the Hawking flash will cook Mars. Aya nodded. Helm. Emergency jump. Coordinates preset for $1 and 10 cents sunward. Go. Space folded again. The Tigris vanished from the Kuiper belt and reappeared, hanging above the sun's northern pole like a dark angel. Behind them, the micro-black hole reached critical instability and detonated in a perfect sphere of hard gamma. The blast erased the 30 hunter ships and carved a temporary bite out of the Kuiper belt, but the bulk of the 7th Choir, still scattered in high Earth orbit, was far enough away to survive the radiation, close enough to witness what came next. Because the Veilari were not dead. They were worse than dead. They were alone, terrified, and still armed with weapons that could crack planets. Aya opened a system-wide broadcast on every frequency humanity had ever used. This is Captain Aya Okoye of the UNS Tigris to all Veilari vessels. You have 60 seconds to power down reactors and prepare to be boarded, or we will finish what we started. Your hive is broken. Your choir is silenced. You are individuals now. Choose what kind of individuals you want to be. Static. Then a single Veilari voice, trembling, translated by the Tigris's linguisoft. We yield. One by one, 210 remaining warships powered down their lances, opened their hangar bays, and waited. Humanity, shattered, half its leaders dead, its orbital infrastructure in ruins, did the impossible. In the weeks that followed, Marines in patched-together vac suits boarded living alien cathedrals. Psychologists who had spent their lives studying grief were suddenly counseling 8-meter-tall telepaths who had never known a single private thought. Engineers learned to speak to ships that bled when damaged. And in the middle of it all, the Tigris limped home on auxiliary fusion, its exotic hull cracked, its black hole heart gone forever. Aya Okoye stood on the observation deck of Tycho Station 3 months later, watching shuttles ferry former Velari prisoners, now calling themselves the Severed, down to rehabilitation camps in the Sahara. The sky was full of alien ships painted with new insignia, a broken circle. Mira Voss joined her, carrying 2 bulbs of contraband real coffee. "They're calling it the 60-second war," Mira said. "Historians are angry because it doesn't sound impressive enough." Aya took the coffee. "Good. Let them be angry. Maybe they'll remember that sometimes the shortest wars are the ugliest." Mira hesitated. "Do you ever think about what we did? We gave an entire species existential terror in a heartbeat. We made them into therapy." Aya stared at the broken circle insignia on a distant shuttle. "They thought humanity was weak because we argue, because we're alone in our skulls, because we die after 100 years if we're lucky. But being alone is what taught us mercy. And mercy is the only reason any of them are still breathing." She raised her bulb in a quiet toast toward the stars. "They thought humanity was weak. They were wrong.